They didn't honor their reservation, so, by user Dylian. Few months ago, I volunteered to plan my Mill's 60th birthday and my Phil's 64th birthday, which was a weekend in wine country. I had made a reservation for a group of 10 at a new upscale restaurant months beforehand. Because it was also a winery, we arrived 2 hours early and checked in with the restaurant to see if they could seat us earlier. Despite an empty restaurant, they said they couldn't, and that was no big deal. We understood they could be low-staffed, so we went and got some wine and hung out and listened to live music. Close to our reservation time, I got a text from the restaurant to be seated. It was beginning to rain. We walked over to the hostess. She informed us that because it was raining, and because our table was outdoors, that they would not be able to seat us tonight. As calmly as I could, I explained to them that I have had a reservation for months. I've been here for 2 hours, and I was not told that my reservation was for an outdoor table or subject to rain. There was no indoor/outdoor option. I explained to them that it was for a 60th and 64th birthday party. I asked if they could split us up between tables, and they just kept saying that there was nothing they could do, and that it wasn't their fault, because we can't control the weather. I snapped a little and said sharply, well, what you could have done was not reserve out a table to a large party that you could not guarantee. The manager just shrugged. We left, and because it was a Saturday at 6 p.m. there was no way we were getting a seat at another restaurant. I had to go to the grocery store and cook a full meal for 10 people. I emailed the manager to ask them if there was anything they could comp because our experience was so terrible. I got no response after a week, so I made multiple Gmail accounts, and left what was a fairly new restaurant 10 different 1-star reviews. In the reviews I said that you should never book this restaurant if you have a large party, how they did not try to find us a table at another restaurant, how they had 2 hours to fix their error, that they booked out a table they could not guarantee, that they didn't move a table undercover, which there was plenty, provide any comps or otherwise make any attempt to fix their error. They ended up with a 2-star drop in their Google rating because of my reviews. I left 1 review for every person that did not get a seat. Several days after I had posted, they reached out offering to comp a meal for my in-laws if our group took the reviews down. Which I refused. Don't ask if you don't want to know, by user Strange Marzipan 9641. My neighbor is a proper Christian lady, and a huge busybody. She was my friend on FB, and had been for years, because she is also the president of our HOA, and shares info on her page which I liked having access to. A couple of years ago I was asked to moderate a relatively large Facebook group, so I changed my FB name from my legal name to first name middle name. Sally Joe as opposed to Sally Joe Smith. Well, PCL saw me at the park not too long after and asked why I'd changed my FB name. I didn't give her an answer. She asked me no less than 4 times over the following weeks, finally cornering me at the grocery store saying, well, are you ever going to tell me why you changed your Facebook name? I'd had enough. So I flatly said I joined a swingers group, and I've started meeting people on FB for no strings attached adult fun. I was concerned about someone learning my identity and stalking me, so I decided to remove my last name for security. She blushed a color I'd never seen before and just walked away. It was glorious, and a week later I noticed we were no longer FB friends. Refuse to admit you made a mistake? That's fine, I'll take a 240 as my grade, by user beep beep. This is pretty short, but I think it's a pretty funny story. Last semester in my geography class, we had a big test a few weeks before exams. The teacher of this class was new and notorious for being a bitch with a god complex who can't admit when she's wrong. So I take this test and when I check my grade, it says 89/37. I realize that she has made a mistake and I quickly email her with a screenshot of the grade, to which she responds, I didn't make a mistake. If you are unhappy with your grade then you should have studied more. Well, I just screenshot the email and laughed about it with my friends. Well, the end of the semester rolls around and I end the semester with a 200 in her class because she was too bitchy to admit she was wrong. If you don't buy it, you can't have it free, by user Dirk Verbin. Last month I closed my physical office, and everyone works from home now. Part of closing it was selling off everything in it. We also have a vendor that I had to cancel a contract on, leaving me with a $12,000 bill. The vendor has an office down the hall, and I chatted up one of their sales managers, vendor guy, and he expressed that they're planning to expand and might want our space. While the space is a deal with the building, maybe we can trade the furniture for the bill. It's custom for the space and was a lot more expensive than the bill, and he seemed pretty excited about the idea. When we got a couple weeks away, I got the impression that he was clearly dragging his feet on buying the furniture, and I talked to the building management about hiring their waste contractor to haul it all out. Building guy mentions that the vendor said they might want to buy the furniture, so it has clearly come up in their discussions, and asked whether I was abandoning it. I said yes, but also explained the bill and trade I was trying to work out, and stated clearly that I wasn't going to both pay their bill and give them free furniture. I met with the waste contractor. He sounded already familiar with the situation, and gave me a very low handshake quote for the work. I got the distinct impression everyone had a plan I wasn't included on. 2 weeks before the lease was up, I contacted vendor guy and asked him how it was coming along. He said it was being handled by other folk in his company, and I told him to communicate that I needed an answer by the end of that week. I didn't get an answer, so I completely disassembled all the furniture. It took me maybe 5 days, a giant reverse IKEA for a whole office full of custom furniture, and piled it all up in the center of the office. The day before the lease was up, I turned in the keys and paid the waste contractor's invoice. A full week later, I get a very polite email from building guy, asking whether I had the screws and parts to put it back together. No, I explained, I brought them all home along with the connecting plates and smaller metal parts, and threw them away there, and reminded him that I said if vendor guy didn't buy it, I had no intention of giving him anything for free. A couple days after that, vendor guy calls me asking about what we left in the space. I explained that he had quite a bit of nerve asking me for anything beyond their bill. Looks like the waste contractor ended up having to do the work I paid them for after all. Karens keep stealing from my garden, by user zero over time. On a property with a beautiful lawn, and it came with side garden running along the fence bordering the sidewalk full of herbs like mint, lavender and oregano, some small carrots and other stuff. Quickly learned that several older ladies in the neighborhood felt entitled to my garden. They were reaching through the fence posts up to their shoulders, going as far as their arm could reach, grabbing what they could and fill their plastic bags. They would wait till someone was out of the house or early in the morning to make their grab and run, so they were well aware they were in the wrong. Just knowing they were doing this whenever we were out of the house, made my skin crawl. So I ripped out the garden. Less work for me now. It honestly became too much work and messy to have, but it wasn't a big deal and there was plenty of it to go around. I hate gardening, so it was a relief to get rid of. I also didn't like that the garden had become an invitation for thieving grannies to intrude on my property. I was planning on removing the garden eventually, but was not in a rush and didn't care enough. They just accelerated my plans to get rid of it all by fueling me with spite. If only they has asked and introduced themselves, I probably would have kept it a little longer. ___/. Edit, for the people getting mad at me for removing the garden, I do not like to garden and I did not like this garden. It was in all honesty a shitty garden. It was poorly planned, jumbled together, messy with weeds everywhere, and even when cleaned up it looked like horseshit. I have a black thumb, so I couldn't fix it if I tried. The garden had to go eventually. I just didn't care and wasn't in a rush until I learned they were staking out my property to trespass and take things from it when I wasn't home. So as petty does, I got rid of it 100% out of spite. EDIT2, I am not going to maintain a garden I don't want. So don't suggest how I could have kept it because I was going to remove it anyways. Electric or barbed fences are not permitted where I live, so don't suggest that either. This includes chicken wire. I would have let them take all the plants home, roots and all, had they asked, but since they didn't and I am petty, no plants for anybody. EDIT3, stop suggesting I plant poison ivy, poison oak, or nettles. I want to be able to roll around my yard with my dog and enjoy it without a care face with tears of joy. EDIT4, people accusing me of depriving poor old people from food. Ha! I live in a well-to-do area and the only depriving I am doing is boomers who feel entitled to trespass on my property. This was a shitty garden of just herbs and some carrots that were the size of my pinky toe. Nobody is being deprived of any real food to speak of. For whatever reason they just felt entitled to it, ignored me the day I moved in, damaged my fence and planned their trespassing excursions when I left the house. EDIT5, people upset that this was boring. It's supposed to be. It's petty, i.e. small and trivial. I'm not going out of my way, drop a lot of money or waste my time to plan an elaborate revenge. I'm not going to hurt anyone. I'm just going to be petty.